Welcome in, everyone. I hope you guys are doing great wherever you're watching from today. We have a very important topic to talk about, and that is new comments from President Trump about the situation and negotiations with Iran over the country's nuclear program and its pursuit of getting nukes and getting weapons-grade enriched uranium. The situation has been ongoing for months at this point, and it feels like we are nearing a resolution. However, President Trump did send Iran a very stern warning about the timeline and the timeline necessary to get a deal done to avoid war. We're going to get into all of that and much more. Before we do, as always, please make sure to like and subscribe. Most importantly, comment with your thoughts below because it definitely helps us in the algorithm, helps share our messages to a broader audience, and hit that bell so you always know when there's a new video coming. Now, let's get into it. The United States of America and Iran have been negotiating for several months about reaching a diplomatic solution to Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons, and it seems like there's been ebbs and flows in the situation. At some moments, it seems like war was going to be imminent, like when they moved B-2 stealth bombers to Diego Garcia. At other moments, it looks like diplomacy will prevail, such as when Trump stopped Israel from bombing Iran and when he said that great progress had essentially been made and that there was light at the end of the tunnel to stop their program. However, at some point, a decision is going to have to be made. Is a deal going to be reached, or is a deal not going to be reached? And we are butting up against that timeline here. President Trump in the Middle East, I believe he's on his way back now from the Middle East, or will be very soon. He spoke a couple different times about the situation. We're going to run those clips here so you can see them for yourself, make your own determination, and then we'll get into it. This first clip is President Donald Trump talking with Fox News' Brett Baier, saying that if the timeline fails, essentially, that they run out of time to negotiate a deal, we're going to be in a very different situation, a not so thinly veiled threat at the Iranians to play ball. Let's go ahead and roll that clip right now.
Iran wants to trade with us, okay, if you can believe that, and I'm okay with it. I'm using trade to settle scores and to make peace. But I've told Iran, we make a deal, you're going to be very happy. But more than anything, I've told Iran very simply, because I heard somebody making my case last night on television. I didn't like it because they were saying there's plenty of time. There's not plenty of time. There's not plenty of time.
You feel urgency.
Well, they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and eventually they'll have a nuclear weapon, and then the discussion becomes a much different one.
There you had President Donald Trump laying out in very clear and no uncertain terms what is at stake and what will happen if a deal cannot be reached. The good news is it does seem that at the same time, Trump made a comment about how the Iranians will not have what he referred to as nuclear dust, and that that progress has been made, I should say. So he's saying both things at once, that we want a deal, we want Iran, and most importantly, the people of Iran to do well, but we're not going to let them get nukes. And he feels that if we cannot reach a deal, then obviously the military option will return. But let's go ahead and roll those comments right now.
Probably read today the story about Iran has sort of agreed to the terms. They're not going to make, I call it in a friendly way, nuclear dust. We're not going to be making any nuclear dust in Iran. And we've been strong. I want them to succeed. I want them to end up being a great country, frankly, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. That's the only thing. It's very simple. It's not like I have to give you 30 pages worth of details. There's only one sentence. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
So there you all saw President Trump's latest comments on the negotiations with Iran, saying time is indeed running out. And obviously, we all know how this story ends. If time runs out, it's not going to be pretty for anyone involved, certainly not the Iranians, certainly not the Iranian government. But obviously, he is still holding out a lot of hope that a deal can be reached. And it appears that a draft of the potential final deal to avoid a massive conflict in the Middle East is possibly being kicked around right now by the United States and Iran. Let me throw this up on the screen for you here. This comes from Axios. It says the Trump administration gave Iran a proposal for a nuclear deal during the fourth round of negotiations on Sunday. A U.S. official and two other sources with direct knowledge tell Axios. Why it matters. It was the first time since the nuclear talks started in early April that White House envoy Steve Witkoff presented a written proposal to the Iranians. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi took the proposal back to Tehran for consultations with Supreme Leader Khamenei and President Masoud Pezeshkian. I'm sure I butchered that guy's name, but you know what? I don't really care. And other top officials. President Trump said Tuesday in Saudi Arabia that he presented an olive branch to the Iranians, but stressed that this is not an offer that will last forever. The time is right now for them to choose. It says behind the scenes, during the first round of talks, Araghchi gave Witkoff a written document with several Iranian proposals. Witkoff told Araghchi it was too soon for that and he wanted to build rapport first, a source with knowledge of the meeting said. During the third round of talks in late April, Araghchi gave Witkoff an updated document with Iranian ideas for a nuclear deal. This time, Witkoff took the document. A U.S. team of experts studied it and sent the Iranians a list of questions and requests for clarifications. The Iranians replied and added questions of their own, two sources said. So that's where we're at right now. They're kicking around a final proposal to avoid a war, to reach a deal so that B-2 stealth bombers don't have to fly into Iranian airspace and we don't see a mass military action unfold against the Iranian government, hit their underground facilities. And you know what? It's an important step forward. It's an important step to avoid conflict. So where do we go from here? Let's get into that right now. All signs currently appear to indicate that it is more likely than not a peace deal will be reached with Iran that will stop their program from ever getting weapons-grade enriched uranium and thus not being able to build a nuke. That's where all the pieces are on the table right now. This is very fluid. This could change at any time. And it's important to note that anyone who comes on here and says, this is for sure what's going to happen and this is absolutely what's going to occur, has absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And I would encourage you all to discount their opinion, go ahead and throw it out because it means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. Having said that, I would put the chances of peace right now, it's been slowly ticking up. I've gone from 60 to 70 to 80. I'm right around 85% now. But again, the way you have diplomacy is with the credible military threat. You need whoever you're negotiating with to truly believe that if they do not comply, if they do not play ball, there will be bombs falling out of the sky and rocking their world, right? Because if they don't believe you're going to do that, then they have no real reason to negotiate with you. So what President Trump is doing is he's telling the Iranians, hey, we want a peace deal, but this process cannot play out forever. You can't stall forever and then get to the point where you get a bomb or get right one step short of getting a bomb, because then obviously we are going to have to take military action, and that's exactly what the United States will do. So he's warning them that the timeline to get a deal done is dwindling down, and the Iranians are soon going to run out of options if they don't reach a deal. And that the worst case scenario is you're going to see U.S. bombers flying into Iranian airspace and flattening their underground facilities. I will also tell you this. The United States cannot allow any country in the region, whether it be Saudi Arabia, Israel, whoever it might be, to pressure the United States off the diplomatic track. Now, the Gulf states like Saudi Arabia definitely want a peace deal. Their economies are going through a transition period. They expect to be hit with great growth. They've signed all these massive economic deals with the U.S. The last thing they want is for their oil fields, their infrastructure to get blown up in a potential Iranian retaliatory strike. Some people say, well, there will be no retaliatory strike. You don't know that. You simply do not know that. Once you start going up the escalation ladder, you have no idea where the situation might go next. You don't have a clue. So anyone who says, oh, they won't do anything in response, again, has absolutely no clue what they're talking about. We need to focus on what's best for America, and what's best for America is making sure we do not end up in another quagmire in the Middle East, bogged down in another Middle Eastern conflict that cost hundreds of billions of dollars, cost American lives, cost American blood and treasure. That should be the goal, and it seems like that is where President Trump is going right now. That is good news. We cannot let our country be pressured by anyone else into carrying out a strike on Iran unless it is the United States' decision, because keep in mind, we'll be the ones who have to do the attacking.
And there are many people that want me to go the other route. They say just knock it out, because nobody can beat us. No, we have the strongest military in the world by far. Not China, not Russia, not anybody. We have the best military equipment in the world, and we have the strongest military in the world. If you remember ISIS, General Raisin Kane, right? We knocked it out in 3 weeks. Remember they said it would take 4 years to knock out ISIS? We did it in 3 weeks.
But let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know specifically in the comments. Do you want a peace deal with Iran, or do you want to see the United States strike Iran? Make sure to like and subscribe. Hit the bell so you always know when there's a new video coming. And as always, I'll catch y'all next time.